Hey there. Welcome to the Pelvis Project podcast. I'm Megan.
And I'm Roxy. We're two pelvic health experts brought together by passion for our careers, entrepreneurship, motherhood, and the desire for intentional relationships.
Join us in our mission to spread pelvic floor awareness and start conversations surrounding the truth behind genuine health, imperfect wellness, and joyfully navigating life. We are so glad you are here with us.
Let's start the conversation.
Hello.
Hey, Megan. It's good to be back.
We're back.
We are back, and we are going to jump into tonight's topic of why one pelvic floor visit is not ideal. But before we do that, we're going to just tell me something good. Megan, start us off.
Let's see here. Tell me something good. There's been a lot of good things. I think just my daughter's basketball started, and it's been so much fun to go watch her play and see her improve just in like the month that they've started. And we're rolling up on Thanksgiving. So we're getting ready to have some family time. So that's all good stuff. So that's mine. They're very general. Roxy, what about you?
I would have to say, gosh, I don't even know. Can't even remember what I did yesterday, let alone.
I know.
Probably, kind of same thing. I think it's just like we're gearing up for kind of the holiday season. And I think it just kind of gets me. This has been a fast month. And I think I've tried to make myself just pause and appreciate, each day. And I don't know. I think I'm hitting not a midlife crisis, a little crisis of like, my kids are getting a little older and I feel like they just were born yesterday and what is happening. So I'm thankful for them. But anyway, nothing specific, but just a lot of little things. I think all the feels of like Thanksgiving and being reflective and trying to be present and intentional and all the things. So
absolutely. Yes. Very similar. Yeah. So the topic we're going to discuss tonight, we decided to bring up because it's funny. I had a colleague that's in another state mention that she had a handful of people that, call and they're like, well, can I just come in for one visit and you just give me the exercises I need to fix this? And I was like, oh, that's so fascinating. And then it's come up a couple times for us too. And then Roxy was sharing that she kind of had an experience with that. And so not sure if it's the time of year or like what that's all about, but we just thought we'd do a podcast on why one session, especially the evaluation where it's the evaluation, why one session of pelvic floor therapy most of the time isn't going to cut it to solve the problem that has probably been taking years to finally show up as dysfunction. So we're going to kind of talk about that and hopefully just try to like put a little light and a little bit more understanding of, I know for Roxy and I, both of our clinics, we put a lot of energy and effort and commitment into everybody that we see and our evaluations being as comprehensive as they are and us looking at patient information before somebody comes in and developing a plan of care. And so it is very hard when, you put a lot in and then somebody's like, okay, well, let me just give me this and then I'll just call you if I need you. It's like, I don't even know what the analogy would go with that, but it's just like, oh, okay.
Yeah, I think that just appreciating, just to start off, appreciating the comprehensive nature of our evaluations. And it's not necessarily for us to feel validated at all, but I think there can be a big disconnect between when we're going in and we understand all the layers and the components of dysfunction, that we are ready to do a comprehensive evaluation, a comprehensive treatment, and we understand what it takes to get somebody fully well or as healthy as they can be. And if they're coming in with a different expectation than us, then it's hard. And so we're just going to kind of start off by chatting about how comprehensive the eval is. And we've had episodes just about what the first visit looks like and like what all we do in an evaluation. And so definitely if you're curious about like a really long, not really long, pardon me, just a more thorough conversation about the nuts and bolts of what each evaluation has, definitely go back and listen to that. But just in a nutshell, typically we, like Megan said, we have you fill out a pretty thorough intake before you come in so that we can maximize our time together while we're there. We're going to review all your medical history, review your symptoms, not just the symptoms that you offer us, but our intake paperwork is intentionally designed to ask lots of questions that maybe you didn't even realize could be related or could be involved. And so we are trying to, even before you come in, we're looking at all that and understanding kind of where you've been, what has brought you to the point that you're in our clinic, and then doing an assessment on you in person together, and identifying potential causes of your symptoms.
So why one session isn't enough is, as we talk more, it kind of unravels. But the reason why we don't typically want to just say like, well, sure, come on in for one visit and we'll see like what we can give you, is because the way that we're trained and what we know is we know that the pelvic floor, the issues are most often like there's multiple contributing factors to it. So whether that's muscular imbalances, trauma, nerve involvement, lifestyle, habits, different stuff like that, we know, and we want so badly for our patients to get better. And we can, it's like we see all the points and the issues, and we've already put them together in our head, and it's our job to help kind of connect the dots for who's in the room with us. But we know that it is not a one thing. So if somebody comes in and we might give you exercises to work on at home, that's important. But those one exercises is not going to be the one thing that's going to fix it. There's multiple things that we are going to be working on that all work together for the good to help that body start to everything work together again. Number one, why one session isn't enough is pelvic floor issues often have multiple components to them. So we just quite frankly cannot cover that all in one session. And then change takes time. So muscles need to, when we're talking in a muscle standpoint, they need to learn to relax. They need to contract. They need to strengthen. They need to be retrained and coordinated. And the average person comes in and it doesn't know if they're contracting, doesn't know if they're relaxing. And so it's really important that if we're going to give you something, that we need to follow up with you to make sure that you're doing it correctly. Because if you're not doing it correctly, and it could be not doing anything, so it's a waste of your time. And also, yeah, we don't want to waste your time. Don't waste your time. And so, yeah, we want to make sure that everything's working, that it's functioning correctly. And then, something else to remember is sometimes issues may not be immediately apparent. So requiring ongoing assessment is important. So often when we do our initial evaluation, I know for myself, I'm sure for Roxy, I do my initial assessment, but we're constantly reassessing every single time. And I can tell you there are so many times that, as we're working through, we uncover more as we're going. So I suppose if you're going to somebody who doesn't treat the whole body and doesn't see all the different components, maybe they'll be like, yeah, here you go. Here's some exercises. Just come back when you need me. But that's not going to get anybody anywhere. So I don't know, Roxy, have any more input on that?
One thought I have is just the comprehensive nature. We don't have enough time. I mean, in some, like if you roll your ankle, for example, that's a little bit sometimes maybe simpler evaluation to do. We're kind of focusing on that area. There's a mechanism of injury, and you get the evaluation and the treatment and everything all kind of wrapped up in one session. Mm-hmm. With pelvic health, though, we're doing like head to toe. We're doing a thorough assessment. There's lots of layers, kind of like you said, but there just isn't the time basically to understand absolutely everything about what is happening in someone's body in that first visit. And so we work on a few things, and there's like momentum that happens with it. So when, we give you some exercises to do the first time, we don't intend for those to be your cure. We intend for those to move the needle, to get the ball rolling, to get momentum and change in your body that then overflows into the other interventions that follow after that. And so I think sometimes there's just that assumption of the eval. We're supposed to know exactly every single thing that's contributing and causing, and that we have a really good idea. But like Megan said, there's some things that don't actually present well, or maybe we didn't have time to thoroughly look at every single part of your body that first day. And so anyway,
Yeah.
that's just a thought that I had of there just isn't the time to be thorough in every single thing, every single factor. We get a bigger picture with the ongoing nature of our treatment and our eval.
Yeah. And I think just in general in PT, like, I think that was a good example with like an ankle injury, it's a little bit more like, okay, we know the mechanism of injury. Like, there are these kind of more of a straight protocol that you can follow with something like that. Obviously, in pelvic health, there's no protocols that we're following really. But with that too, I don't know where along the lines it kind of came of like, we really do in physical therapy, there's a plan of care, there's a process. It's never been something where you just pop in and do one and you're done type of thing. It's never I don't know where kind of along those lines, but it kind of going back to also just thinking like anything worth doing, like it might take time. If it's worth doing, it's going to take time and it's not a quick fix. It's like if you have a cavity and you go to the dentist, you go in there, they know it's a cavity, they know what they're going to do and they're going to fix it and you're going to leave. But with this isn't just like you're just coming in one visit, it's fixed and you leave because it took years and years and the tissue and the body that we're working with takes time to change. Therefore, it's just going to take a little bit more time.
I'll say that kind of segues into kind of just looking at the follow-up sessions. So yeah,
Yeah.
continue.
Yeah. So the role of the follow-up sessions, are pretty important and they're essential for us to be able to adjust your treatment as you progress. So to me, in my mind, I'm like, why would you want to come in and just be given one set of exercises? Because those set of exercises might be good for you on that day. But as you get better, those exercises are not going to be what's appropriate for you. And we're going to change those probably, add to them, take away. And so therefore, again, we're thinking about like, okay, if we're just going to keep doing those same basic exercises, then you're going to start wasting your time. A, we don't know if you're doing them correctly. And B, maybe you are, and you've gotten to a point where they're no longer optimal for you. And so we're going to adjust the treatments as you progress. There's going to be ongoing education on the exercises, body mechanics, lifestyle changes, addressing setbacks, because we know this, that progression and improvement is not linear. It doesn't just continuously go up like in a linear motion. It's you get better, you might have setbacks, you loop around, you get better again, setbacks, loop around. And we need to be there to walk you through those. We also really want to know as we're having you do different activities and exercises, if it does flare anything up, we want to know that so that then we can modify or we can make changes. And if we're not seeing you, we have no idea. And I think that's one of the most frustrating things is we take what we do very seriously. And so to not get any follow up or no, it's like, well, we can't really do our job. But then this just falls back to at the end of the day, human behavior is we can't make anybody do anything, but we're just trying to encourage and just promote that if you're going to take the time to come in and address this stuff, we want you to like fully embrace it and understand why the follow-up visits are so important. Because if you're making headway and then all of a sudden you're like, you know what, I think I'm doing well enough, I'm just going to not go for 3 or 4 weeks. But what happens is we start to see change before the dysfunction is actually resolved, which is great because we want people to feel good. But to the lay person, you think, okay, I don't need to go anymore. And then what starts to happen is you start to do less and less of your exercises because you feel better. But the problem wasn't actually fully taken care of. And so then it starts to come back and then you have to pick back up again. So addressing setbacks and changes and the symptoms over time is really important with those follow-up sessions. And I don't know, Roxy, you have anything else with that? Just like how treatments evolve over time?
For sure. I just was thinking about how it's really kind of fun and exciting and cool for like in follow-up visits for people to have these, I don't want to say new problems. Like that sounds weird that I'd be excited about that, but it's like they come in and this is their main complaint. As they progress with that, then they have questions. They have new problems because they're better, but then they're trying to navigate these new problems that weren't having before because their problems were way, way worse. And so maybe like they were just leaking all the time. And then maybe all of a sudden they're like, I can actually hold it, but I start leaking when I'm pulling my pants down to get to the bathroom or something like that. Like, but before that wasn't even like that wasn't even an issue because they had problems way before they got to the toilet. And so that's just an example. But it's this idea of, man, we can make a huge dent in symptoms, but the symptoms then present differently because they're better, but that we have to problem solve these new problems that are less problematic, but they're very different than what they like the first initial issue was on the first day. So does that make sense of just like
Yeah.
when they get better, their problems change, even though they're better. And even though we don't
Yeah.
want more problems, it's not that they're more problems. They're just new and different. And that's actually a really
Yeah.
good sign. And so
Yeah.
we can't troubleshoot those because people don't know to ask about them because it was too minuscule. It was not even
Yeah.
relevant the first day they came in.
Right. It's like you sometimes when it's you start on a journey and some new things arise as other things get better, but it's all heading in the right direction. And so if you don't have somebody there guiding you, then that's where people start to just give up or they think that it didn't work. I
Mm-hmm.
think that's one of the most frustrating things is, I mean, you have to be real honest with what's our role as the therapist and what's the role as the patient and being really honest with, okay, like how consistent am I? What am I doing? If you're not doing your stuff or if you're not coming back and you're doing the stuff, but nobody's there to guide you and tell you if you're doing it right. I mean, there's a reason why we have dentists. There's a reason why we have eye doctors. We've all gone to school for specific training. So there's a reason why we're here to help. Yeah, those follow-up sessions are really fun. And what one person starts doing in the beginning, it looks completely different later on. And I mean, I had to think about people who came in because they had recurrent UTIs, and now that's completely gone. But as we worked on that, they were just like, oh my gosh, yes. And as they continue to want to work on different things and they're noticing stuff, now it's like we've shifted to for this particular person, cycle management and improving the length of her cycle and her cramps because it's just kind of things have changed and she recognizes how much what we do is helpful. So I think that's something too to remember that within both of our clinics, nothing has to be wrong to come. You can come to learn your body, and also improve performance. And you can come for a problem and then you can choose to do maintenance or you can choose to say like, hey, I've also noticing this. Let's work on that. So anyway, it's really cool stuff. And I just get excited for people when they do commit. There's a difference between somebody who's like, yes, okay, I'm going to trust you and I'm going to do what you say versus others that are like, well, I kind of want to do this. And it just takes longer. So it's time and energy and all the stuff. So anyway, of course, we want people to be successful. So yeah, commitment is important. Okay. So moving on.
Yeah, let's chat about then just like the expectations versus the reality of that first visit and setting that up just practically for good expectations, healthy expectations with follow-ups. And so I think first of all is just as we're chatting on that first visit, we need to set our patients up for realistic goals. And so a lot of times what we do is to even back that up on our intakes, I know Megan's is like this and ours is one of the final questions that we ask are like, what are your goals? Why are you here? What are you hoping to get out of this? That I think helps kind of bring us onto the same level so we can speak into that. We can understand what the patient's expectations are. And so then in that, we are setting shorter goals because I want a quick win. I want to get some headway. I want to show the patient that what they're doing is worth it. We set some short-term goals that are like, we hope that they meet them pretty quick. And then we're setting some of those bigger long-term goals and we're bantering throughout their treatment session about like, where are we at with those goals and tracking progress and making sure that the reason the patient came in the first day, that their sights are still on those goals. And if they've changed, then we need to keep having that conversation. But I think really just that communication of setting goals and making sure that it's like attainable and that that's what the patient wants.
Yeah. Constantly kind of revisiting and circling back and showing where the changes have happened is important.
So, just to segue off of then the goals then is setting up realistic timelines. I think some people want to be fixed now. And I don't blame them. Like, I'm an impatient person. I want efficiency. I want things done yesterday. And I think that especially people that have, I think it's funny because I think people who have really high expectations and perfectionistic tendencies are that way. But then I think like people that are just kind of lazy also, like it's funny because it's like two ends of the spectrum. I'm not trying to call anybody out, but just this, it's funny the different, there's different types of people that we notice are like either just frustrated because they wanted it to be fixed. And we have to keep circling back to timelines and just saying, oh, thinking about even like strengthening takes, several weeks for us to see the byproduct of just starting strengthening. And there's just a lot of like healing, even just like a scar, for example, for just our body to heal, there's biological timelines. And so to even just to bring that into the conversation to say, here's what we're seeing, or this is what we can expect, I think helps also clear up some confusion of maybe some of those unrealistic timelines that people have, or those expectations that they're hoping their body will perform under. And then I think just also to kind of finish this thought is just to address different myths like that we're going to fix, like us as pelvic floor therapists, we are like going to heal something or fix something, or the pelvic floor therapy is just it's going to be a quick instant fix and we're going to have these drastic changes. Sometimes that is the case and sometimes not. And if people are if they're coming in thinking I'm going to get my quick fix and move on and get a couple tools in my tool belt and that's going to be the end of it, then that's going to be a big letdown, quite frankly. They can try it, and that's just it. Like Megan said, we're not going to be the arbiter of their choices and what they think and what they want and what their goals are, but also that's a recipe for disappointment.
Yeah. Yeah. There's that. Where's the expectation reality lies is the reality is good things take time. Our body needs time. And I just think about, especially in the space that we work, if the difference is when you see somebody who you just know they're like, okay, they're embracing the fact that this is going to take time versus the person that's like, okay, let's just hurry up. Let's just get it going. They could just want it over with. So, but again, that is, again, one of the layers that we have to look at going into therapy. So again, it's multifactorial. But yeah, so next we're going to talk about like what you can do between sessions. Of course, we are giving you things to do at home and you will have better outcomes if those are done at home consistently. Everybody, there is a rhythm of life that goes on and different time periods where you might have different things going on with your kids or your family. We know that. But across the board, I tell my patients, yeah, of course I love it when they come back and they're like, yep, I did exercises every day. But if you're consistent with twice a week, but you're consistent with that, that's okay. Where it becomes not helpful for you is, well, I didn't do anything, or I did them once and then 3 weeks went by and I did them here. And that's the other thing is some people's personalities, you just need to be in the room with somebody and be held accountable. I know I'm that way, especially when I'm starting a new program. I need to meet with somebody a little bit more frequently. And then we can help you figure out, why maybe you are struggling to be consistent with your work at home. But yeah, so at home, of course, there's other things we'll have you work on, exercises or strengthening, or simply having you try to drink more water, or we're going to have you look at your sleep, that sort of stuff. And then integrating some of what we're doing into your daily life. We're going to teach you how to do that. I mean, there are exercises and things that we have people work on with their pelvic floors that they can do when they're sitting in a meeting and nobody even knows that they're doing this. Again, you can't get all that information and all of that in one visit. Like it's just not realistic. Again, the reality versus expectations. And we just know how helpful all this can be. And so that's where the passion comes from it. But anyway, so I think that really kind of covers, like, I think we get the gist of why one visit just isn't going to do the trick. It might be helpful and it might give you some good information, but that information isn't going to translate into your healing. So we talked about the importance of a comprehensive evaluation, the role of follow-up sessions, expectation versus reality, and then like what's done between sessions. And also, I just want to say one thing to that. The hands-on work that we do in the clinic is pretty vital. And so that's the other really hard thing is if you're not coming in for specific diagnoses or specific people, it's very important that we have time for you to come in and us get our hands on you in order to make the progress. So, Roxy, any last thoughts on this?
Yeah, I think that just people in general, this is just a life lesson, I guess, of just when expectations are different. I think that's just when a lot of conflict happens in general. Like if we looked at anything, marriage and coworkers and whatever, just when you're interacting with people, I think when expectations aren't on the same page, then we struggle. That's just something we really are feeling strongly to communicate, is to try to set expectations to be more appropriate and help people understand where we're coming from. And this is definitely a dialogue that happens on that first visit. Also to just try to make sure that we're all on the same page and meeting the goals for our patients that we're seeing. And everybody walks away in a really good place that way. And jobs well done on all across the board.
Yeah. Like that. I think that's the job well done of, we want to commit to who walks in our room, that we're going to guide you and give you the best care possible. That's hard, because you got to work together as a team, and understanding that it does take more than just a one time in. So hopefully it's kind of helpful in understanding like why we shy away from the, can I just come in for one visit? Sometimes it's like, well, that's not what we're doing here. So but anyway, all right. Well, I'm trying to think here. Our next episode will be after Thanksgiving. So everybody that's listening, enjoy Turkey Day with your family. And we'll be back to continue the conversation. And if you ever have any podcast requests of what you'd like us to talk about, please feel free to send us a message on our Instagram at the Pelvis Project. And yeah, we'd love to hear it. So we'll keep this conversation going. Thank you so much for joining us this week on the Pelvis Project podcast. Help us continue the conversation by liking and sharing this episode with friends. And if you really want to do us a solid, leave us a review. If you'd like to follow us on social, check out the show notes for links. And remember, this week, take a deep breath and relax your pelvic floor.